My name is Patsy. I am 63 years old, and right now I am standing in my kitchen at 10 o'clock at night washing a mountain of dishes while my son and his wife laugh at some comedy show in my living room. The dinner I cooked is gone. They ate every bite. My portion sits on the counter cold and waiting the leftovers they did not want. I raised my son to be a good man. Somewhere along the way, he learned to see me as the help. Before we go any further, I would love to know where you are watching from tonight. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if stories like this touch your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you are going to want to stay with me for this one. What I did next surprised even myself, and I think it might just change how you see your own situation. Now let me take you back to the beginning. My late husband, Eugene, and I bought our house in 1992. It was a ranch-style home in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. 3 bedrooms, a finished basement, a 2-car garage, and a front yard where I planted tulips every single spring. Eugene was a plumber, hard-working man with calloused hands and the kindest heart I ever knew. I taught 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary School for 32 years. We were not rich, but we were happy. We built that house into a home with our own sweat, our own tears, and our own love. I remember the day we brought Derek home from the hospital. Eugene carried him through the front door like he was holding the most precious thing in the universe. And to us, he was. We had tried for years to have a baby, and when Derek finally came, it felt like every prayer we had ever whispered had been answered. I decorated his nursery in pale yellow because we did not know if we were having a boy or a girl. Eugene built a crib with his own hands, sanded every edge smooth so our baby would never get a splinter. Those early years were magical. I would come home from school, grade papers at the kitchen table, and Derek would sit beside me with his crayons drawing pictures of our family. Stick figures with big smiles. Me, Eugene, Derek, and our old dog Buster. Eugene would come home smelling like copper pipes, and hard work scoop Derek up and take him out to the backyard where he had built a swing set. I would watch them from the kitchen window, my heart so full I thought it might burst. I made sacrifices for that boy. Every mother does. But looking back, I wonder if I gave too much. There was a time when a private school across town offered me a position. Better pay, smaller classes, more resources. But it would have meant a longer commute, less time at home. Derek was in middle school then, at that age when boys start to pull away but still need their mothers more than they will ever admit. I turned the job down. I told myself Derek only gets one childhood. I can take the bus. The summer before Derek started high school, he begged us to let him go to basketball camp. A 2-week program, 3 states away, run by former college coaches. The cost was more than Eugene made in a month. Derek had stars in his eyes when he showed us the brochure. He was good at basketball, really good, and this camp could open doors for him. I sold my car. It was an old Honda, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I sold it and took the bus to work for the next 2 years so my son could chase his dream. Eugene found out and cried. Actually cried. He said I should not have done that we could have found another way. But I told him there was no other way, not one that would get Derek to that camp on time. Our son's future is worth more than any Honda. That is what I believed. That is what I lived by. When Derek went to college, I picked up extra tutoring sessions after school, helped struggling readers 3 nights a week. The money was not much, but it covered his textbooks, his meal plan, the little things that add up. When he decided to get his MBA, I took out a small loan against the house. Eugene did not want me to, but I insisted. I said our son is going to be something. We need to invest in him. And he did become something. Derek graduated with honors, got hired at a big construction company as an accountant, and within 5 years, he was making more money than Eugene and I ever dreamed of. I remember the day he called to tell me about his first promotion. I was standing in this very kitchen stirring a pot of soup, and I started crying so hard I had to sit down. Happy tears, proud tears, the tears of a mother who sees her child succeed and knows every sacrifice was worth it. Derek married Jasmine after 2 years of dating. She was pretty ambitious, worked at a bank as some kind of manager. The wedding was beautiful, held at a country club I could never have afforded to step foot in under normal circumstances. I paid for the table decorations myself. Spent 3 months making centerpieces by hand, little mason jars with wildflowers and candles. Jasmine said they were nice, but they did not quite match her vision. Some of them ended up in the back near the restrooms. I did not say anything. When the grandchildren came, Lucas first and then Emma, 3 years later, I felt like my life had come full circle. Eugene and I would drive to their house every week, babysit, while Derek and Jasmine went out, read bedtime stories, bake cookies, all the things grandparents are supposed to do. Those children filled a space in my heart I did not even know was empty. Then, Eugene got sick. Lung disease, the doctor said. Years of working with old pipes, breathing in things he should not have. He fought hard, my Eugene. Fought for 3 years before his body gave out. I held his hand in the hospital room when he took his last breath. The machines beeped and then went silent, and just like that, 50 years of love came to an end. At the funeral, Derek stood beside his father's casket and made a promise. He looked right at me, tears streaming down his face, and said, "I will take care of you, Mom. I promise. Dad would want me to." I believed him. I believed him with every fiber of my being. That was 5 years ago, and for a while Derek did check in, called every Sunday, visited once a month, brought the kids over for holidays. But slowly, gradually, the calls became less frequent. The visits shorter. I told myself he was busy. He had a career, a family responsibilities. I understood. I did not want to be a burden. I had no idea that soon I would not just feel like a burden. I would be treated like one. 8 months ago, Derek called me with news that made my heart sink. He said the company was cutting back, laying people off, restructuring. His salary had been slashed by 30%. Jasmine's bank was doing the same thing, moving her to a lower position with less pay. They were drowning, he said, barely keeping their heads above water. Then he asked the question that changed everything. "Mom, can we move in with you for a while, just until we get back on our feet? The kids need more space than our apartment, and you have that big house all to yourself." I did not hesitate. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. This was my son, my only child, the boy I had sacrificed everything for. Of course he could come home. Of course I would help him. That is what mothers do. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing the house. I cleaned out the basement, bought new beds for Lucas and Emma, painted Emma's room a soft green because Derek mentioned she loved that color now. I went to the store and stocked the refrigerator with all of Derek's favorite foods. Pot roast, real butter, the fancy orange juice with pulp. I even bought those organic snacks. Jasmine liked the ones that cost 3 times as much as regular food. The day they arrived, I cooked a welcome dinner. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes, mashed potatoes on the side, homemade gravy, and a peach cobbler for dessert. Eugene's mother's recipe. I set the table with the good china, the set we only used for holidays and special occasions. I wanted everything to be perfect. Derek hugged me when he walked through the door. A real hug, the kind that made me feel like my little boy was back. Jasmine smiled and said the house looked nice. Lucas ran straight to the backyard to see if the old swing set was still there. Emma asked if she could see her room. For one beautiful evening, it felt like we were a real family again. The first month went smoothly. Jasmine helped with dishes after dinner. Derek mowed the lawn on weekends. We ate meals together, watched movies on Friday nights, played board games with the kids. I started to think that maybe this arrangement would be good for all of us. Maybe losing Eugene had made me realize how important family was, and now I had a second chance to be close to mine. But somewhere in the 5th week, things started to shift. It began with small comments. Jasmine mentioned that my cooking was a little too salty for the children. I adjusted. She said the house smelled like old people. I bought air fresheners. She complained that the television in the living room was too old, that the picture quality hurt her eyes. I did not buy a new one because televisions are expensive and she did not push it. But I noticed the look she gave Derek. The eye roll she thought I did not see. Derek changed too. He stopped asking how my day was. Stopped offering to help carry groceries. When I tried to talk to him about his job search, about how things were going at the company, he would give me one-word answers. Fine, okay, busy. Then he would disappear into the basement where they had set up their living space, and I would not see him again until dinner. One evening, I made a casserole. Tuna casserole, nothing fancy, but it was filling and affordable, and I was trying to stretch my pension. When I brought it to the table, Jasmine looked at it like I had served her garbage. "We actually ordered Chinese," she said. "I forgot to tell you. The delivery arrived 10 minutes later. Derek, Jasmine, and the kids sat at the table eating kung pao chicken and fried rice from little white boxes. My casserole sat untouched on the counter. No one offered me any of the Chinese food. I ate my own casserole alone, standing at the kitchen sink while they laughed about something on Jasmine's phone. I told myself it was a miscommunication, just a one-time thing, but it was not. The next week, Jasmine asked if I could handle the laundry. "You're home all day anyway," she said. "It would really help us out." I agreed. Then, she asked if I could pick up the kids from school since it would save them time in the afternoon. I agreed to that too. Then it was grocery shopping, then cleaning the bathrooms, then vacuuming the entire house. Before I knew it, I was doing everything. Cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, washing clothes for 5 people, scrubbing toilets and mopping floors, driving Lucas to soccer practice and Emma to dance class. I was 63 years old, retired after 32 years of teaching, and I was working harder than I ever had in my life. I called my friend Dorothy one afternoon while Derek and Jasmine were at work. Dorothy and I had taught together at Lincoln Elementary for over 20 years. She knew me better than almost anyone. "How are things with Derek living there?" she asked. I paused. I did not want to complain. Complaining felt like betrayal, but something in my voice must have given me away. "Patsy," Dorothy said slowly. "What's going on?" I told her some of it, not all of it. I softened the edges, made excuses, said I was probably just being too sensitive, adjusting to having a full house again. Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Honey, that doesn't sound like family helping each other. That sounds like family taking advantage of you." I told her she was wrong. Derek was under stress. Jasmine was just particular about things. It would get better once they found their footing, but even as I said the words, I was not sure I believed them. Deep down in a place I did not want to examine too closely, I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own home, like I did not belong at my own dinner table, like I was slowly disappearing one chore at a time. I pushed those feelings down, told myself to be patient, to be understanding. I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The requests became demands. The suggestions became orders. One morning, Jasmine handed me a printed schedule, an actual printed schedule with times and tasks listed in neat columns. She had created it on her computer, complete with color coding. Blue for cleaning tasks, green for childcare, yellow for meal preparation, red for errands. "This will help keep things organized," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "So nothing falls through the cracks." I looked at the schedule. It started at 6 in the morning. Wake up, prepare breakfast. 7:30 pack lunches for the kids. 8 drive kids to school. 9 to 11 house cleaning. 11:30 grocery shopping. And on until 10 at night when I was supposed to finish washing the dinner dishes. There was no time blocked off for me. No rest periods. No moments for reading or watching my shows or simply sitting in silence. I was scheduled like an employee, like hired help. "Jasmine," I started to say, but she was already walking away, calling over her shoulder that she was late for work. I looked at Derek, who was pouring coffee into a travel mug. He would not meet my eyes. "Derek," I said, "this schedule, it's a lot." He shrugged. "Just a guideline, Mom. Jasmine's trying to help everyone stay on track." That was it. That was all he had to say. The grocery situation got worse, too. Derek started handing me shopping lists every week. Long lists filled with expensive items. Organic, this free range that imported cheese, high-end cuts of meat. I was paying for all of it out of my pension. My monthly check barely covered my own expenses before they moved in. Now I was feeding 5 people on a fixed income. One week I asked Derek if they could contribute to the grocery bill. He looked at me like I had asked him to donate a kidney. "Mom, we're struggling," he said. "You know that. We barely have enough to cover our own expenses. And you have your pension, your Social Security. You're actually in a better position than we are right now." I wanted to argue. I wanted to point out that my pension was meant to last me the rest of my life, not be drained in a matter of months, feeding his family premium groceries. But the look on his face stopped me. He seemed annoyed, inconvenienced, like I was being unreasonable. So I said nothing. I added up the grocery bill in my head and tried not to think about how quickly my savings were shrinking. The dinners became a ritual of humiliation. Every night I would cook. Big meals, meat and vegetables and sides and sometimes dessert. I would set the table, pour the drinks, make sure everything was perfect. Then, Derek, Jasmine, and the kids would sit down and eat. I would wait for an invitation to join them. Sometimes it came. Most times, it did not. Mom, can you grab the salt? Mom, Lucas needs more milk. Mom, this meat is a little dry. Is there any gravy left? I became a waitress, serving fetching, hovering around the table like a ghost. By the time they finished eating, the food was cold. I would make myself a plate from what remained, the burnt edges of the roast, the vegetables no one wanted, the heels of the bread. One night, there were no leftovers. They had eaten everything. I stood in front of the empty pots and pans and felt something crack inside my chest. I had spent 3 hours cooking that meal, and I had not gotten a single bite. Jasmine walked into the kitchen to put her plate in the sink. She saw me standing there and said, "Oh, did you not eat? There might be some crackers in the pantry." Then she walked away. I ate crackers for dinner that night, saltines with tap water in my own house. In the house I had paid for in the kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals for my family over the years. I sat on a stool by the counter and ate crackers while my son and his wife watched television in my living room. I called Dorothy again the next day. "Patsy, what you're describing is abuse," she said, and her voice was hard, angry, but not at me. "No," I said. "It's not abuse. He's my son. He wouldn't do that." "Stress doesn't make someone treat their mother like a servant," Dorothy said. "Character does." I hung up quickly after that. I felt ashamed. Not of Derek or Jasmine, but of myself, for telling someone, for admitting out loud what was happening. I looked around the kitchen at the dirty dishes piled in the sink, the schedule stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet, the list of groceries I needed to buy tomorrow. And I wondered when exactly I had stopped being the owner of this house and started being the maid. My 63rd birthday arrived on a Thursday. I woke up that morning with a small flutter of hope in my chest. I was not expecting a party or expensive gifts, but maybe a card, a cake, a simple happy birthday mom over breakfast. I lay in bed for a few extra minutes listening to the sounds of the house waking up. Derek's footsteps in the hallway. Jasmine's voice telling the kids to hurry. Lucas complaining about something. Emma giggling. Normal morning chaos. I got up and walked to the kitchen. Derek was already there drinking coffee and scrolling through his phone. Jasmine was packing the kids' lunches. "Good morning," I said. "Morning," Derek mumbled without looking up. Jasmine did not say anything at all. I waited. I stood there in my robe and waited for someone to acknowledge what day it was. They had to know. Surely they knew. My birthday was the same day every year had been for 63 years. But no one said anything. Derek finished his coffee, kissed the kids on the head, told Jasmine he would see her later, and walked out the door. Jasmine gathered the kids and followed a few minutes later. No one looked back. No one said happy birthday. I stood in the empty kitchen and felt something inside me wither. I went through my day on autopilot, did the laundry, cleaned the bathrooms, went to the grocery store. That afternoon I stopped at a little bakery downtown and bought myself a cupcake. A single chocolate cupcake with vanilla frosting. I brought it home, put it on a plate, and sang happy birthday to myself in a whisper. Then, I ate it alone at the kitchen table, watching the birds outside the window, trying not to cry. That evening, Jasmine came home carrying paper bags from an expensive steakhouse across town. The smell of grilled meat filled the house. She was smiling, animated in a way I had not seen in weeks. "We're celebrating," she announced. "Derek got a raise today. Finally some good news around here." My heart sank and then twisted. A raise. Derek had gotten a raise, but I thought the company had cut his salary. I thought they were struggling. I watched as they unpacked the food. Ribeye steaks, baked potatoes, Caesar salad, a bottle of wine. They set the table, poured drinks, sat down to eat like it was a special occasion. Because it was a special occasion, just not mine. "Mom, can you get some steak sauce?" Derek asked. I got the steak sauce, I poured more water, I cleared the empty salad bowl, and when they were done eating, I washed the dishes while they retired to the living room with the rest of the wine. No one mentioned my birthday, not even once. That night, I closed my bedroom door, sat on the edge of my bed, and cried. Not the soft, dignified tears of a movie, ugly crying, the kind that makes your whole face hurt. I cried for Eugene, who would have made my birthday special. I cried for the son I thought I had raised. I cried for the woman I used to be, confident and respected, and for the woman I had become invisible in her own home. 2 days later, I found the truth. I was picking up some papers that had fallen behind the desk in the living room. Jasmine had been working there the night before, and some documents had slipped to the floor. I was putting them back on the desk when a bank statement caught my eye. It was addressed to Derek. I should not have looked. Privacy matters even within families. But something made me unfold it, some instinct I did not understand. The numbers did not make sense. According to this statement, Derek's direct deposits were much higher than what he had told me. Not 30% less than before. More. Significantly more. His year-to-date income showed he was making more money than he ever had. My hands started to shake. I looked at other papers on the desk. Jasmine's bank statement was there too. She had not been demoted. Her salary was the same as it had been when they first moved in, maybe higher. They were not struggling. They had never been struggling. I put the papers back exactly as I found them, walked to my room, sat down on my bed. My hands would not stop shaking. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what I had seen. At around midnight, I got up to get a glass of water. The house was dark and quiet. Derek and Jasmine's bedroom door was closed, but I could see light underneath, and I could hear voices. I should have kept walking. I know that now, but I stopped. I stood in the hallway and listened. Jasmine was talking. "How long do we have to keep this up? Living here is saving us like $3,000 a month." Derek's voice. "As long as we can. Mom's clueless. She thinks we're struggling. Plus, she does all the housework." Jasmine laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Free maid service. And she pays for groceries too. It's genius, really." "When she gets too old or too sick to be useful," Derek said, "we'll put her in a home and sell this place. It's worth at least $400,000 now." My hand flew to my mouth to keep from crying out. I backed away from the door, heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. I stumbled back to my room and closed the door as quietly as I could. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed and watched the darkness slowly turn to gray as the sun came up. And I thought about my life, about Eugene, about Derek, about everything I had given and everything that had been taken. 1 week later, Jasmine hosted a party. "Just some friends from work," she said. "Nothing fancy, but I need the house to look good, so make sure everything's clean." I spent 2 days preparing, deep cleaning every room, polishing furniture, scrubbing floors on my hands and knees. When the day arrived, Jasmine handed me a list of foods to prepare. Appetizers, main courses, desserts. Enough for 15 people. The party started at 7. Jasmine's friends arrived in nice clothes, carrying bottles of wine, laughing and chattering like this was the social event of the season. They filled my living room, sat on my furniture, complimented the decorations and the food, my furniture, my house. I worked the party like a caterer, carried trays of appetizers, refilled drinks, cleared empty plates. When I passed through the living room, I heard Jasmine introducing me to one of her friends. "This is Derek's mom. She lives with us." Not, "This is her house." Not, "She's kind enough to let us stay here." Just, "She lives with us." Like I was a tenant, an afterthought. The friend looked at me with a polite smile. "Oh, how nice. Like a live-in helper." Jasmine laughed. She did not correct her. I walked back to the kitchen and stood at the sink, gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. A 63-year-old woman with tired eyes and dishpan hands. A woman who used to be respected, who used to have a career and a husband and a place in the world. A woman who had become invisible. And something shifted. Something deep inside me, some small flame that had nearly gone out, flickered back to life. Enough. That night, after the last guest left, after I washed every dish and wiped every counter and swept every floor, I went to my room and sat on my bed in the dark. I was done being invisible. I was done being the help. I was done eating leftovers and sleeping in the smallest room and paying for groceries I barely got to eat. I was going to take back my life, and I was going to start tomorrow. Monday morning, 6 o'clock. Derek and Jasmine were still asleep. The kids would not be up for another hour. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and picked up my phone. Walter answered on the third ring. My older brother, 68 years old, living alone in a sunny house in Scottsdale, Arizona. His wife, Margaret, had passed away the year before, and he had been asking me to come visit for months. Patsy, everything okay? It's early. I told him everything. Every detail I had been holding back for months. The schedule, the leftovers, the birthday. No one remembered the overheard conversation, the party, where I was treated like the hired help. I talked for almost an hour while the sun rose outside my kitchen window. When I finished, Walter was silent for a long moment. Then he said something I will never forget. Patsy, that boy has lost his mind. Eugene would be sick if he knew. I know, I said. That's why I'm calling. I need help, Walter. I need to know my options. Walter had a friend who had gone through a similar situation a few years back. A real estate lawyer named Nancy Feldman who specialized in property rights and estate issues. He gave me her number and made me promise to call her that day. And Patsy, he said before we hung up, my door is always open. If you need a place to go, you come to me. Family takes care of family. Real family. I called Nancy Feldman at 9 o'clock. Her office was in downtown Chicago, about 40 minutes from my house. She had an opening that afternoon, and I took it. I told Derek I had a doctor's appointment. Routine checkup, nothing serious. He barely looked up from his laptop. Nancy's office was on the 14th floor of a glass building in the Loop. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, the kind of woman who had seen everything and was not easily shocked. I told her my story. She listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. Mrs. Patsy, let me make sure I understand. The house is in your name. Only your husband left it to you when he passed. Yes, Eugene added my name when we bought it, and when he died, it became mine outright. Derek's name has never been on the deed. Nancy nodded. Then, legally, you have every right to sell that house whenever you want. You don't need your son's permission. You don't need to give him notice. The house is yours. It sounds strange to say, but I had not really believed it until she said it out loud. The house was mine. After everything, after all the ways I had been made to feel like a guest, a burden, an inconvenience, the house was still mine. How long would it take to sell? I asked. Nancy considered. In this market, with a house like yours, maybe 6 weeks if we price it right. Could be faster if we get lucky with a buyer. I want to do it, I said. I want to sell. Nancy started the paperwork that afternoon. 2 days later, she sent an appraiser to my house while Derek and Jasmine were at work. A quiet man with a clipboard who walked through every room, measured and photographed and calculated. When he was done, he told me the news. $425,000. That was what my house was worth. More than I had expected. Apparently, the neighborhood had improved significantly in recent years. New businesses, better schools, young families moving in. What Eugene and I had bought for $110,000 in 1992 was now worth nearly $500,000. Nancy listed the house the next day. No sign in the front yard, no open houses. I did not want Derek or Jasmine to find out until I was ready. She listed it quietly, reaching out to her network of buyers, showing it only when I confirmed the house would be empty. While we waited for offers, I started packing. Not obviously, not in ways anyone would notice, but every day when I was alone in the house, I would take something that mattered to me and put it in a box. Eugene's favorite mug, our wedding album, the quilt my mother made for us when Derek was born, old letters, photographs, small treasures that told the story of my life. I did not take anything that belonged to Derek and Jasmine. I did not take the furniture or the appliances or anything that had come into the house after Eugene died. I took only what was mine, only what mattered. I opened a new bank account at a branch on the other side of the city, different bank entirely. I had my pension checks redirected there along with my Social Security. Clean break, fresh start. 2 weeks after we listed, Nancy called with news. A young couple wanted to buy. Teachers, both of them just married, looking for their first home. They had seen the photos online and fallen in love. They were offering full asking price and wanted to close in 3 weeks. I met them once before we finalized everything. Sarah and Paul. Nice kids, maybe 30 years old, holding hands while they talked about which room would be the nursery and where they would put the Christmas tree. They reminded me of Eugene and me 50 years ago, standing in this same living room dreaming about the future. "We're going to be so happy here," Sarah said. I believed her, and for the first time in months, I smiled a real smile. The closing was scheduled for a Friday 3 weeks out. I had 3 more weeks to play the dutiful servant, 3 more weeks to wash dishes and eat leftovers and pretend everything was normal. But this time, I had a secret. This time, I had a plan. And this time, I was the one holding all the cards. Closing day arrived on a Friday morning in late October. The leaves had turned reds and oranges scattered across the front yard I had raked just yesterday. My last time raking those leaves, my last time looking at those tulip beds dormant now but ready to bloom again in spring, ready to bloom for Sarah and Paul. I told Derek I had another doctor's appointment. He was working from home that day, laptop open on the kitchen table, barely acknowledging me as I put on my coat and picked up my purse. "See you later," I said. He replied, not looking up. I walked out the front door and did not look back. Nancy's office was bright with afternoon sun. Sarah and Paul were already there, nervous and excited, clutching folders of paperwork. We sat around a conference table and signed document after document. Initials here, full signature there, date at the bottom. When it was done, Nancy slid a check across the table to me. I looked at the number and had to blink several times to make sure I was reading it correctly. $410,000. The sale price, minus fees and commissions. More money than I had ever seen in my life. More money than Eugene and I had earned combined in 10 years of working. I deposited the check at my new bank on the way home. Watched the teller's eyes widen when she saw the amount. She asked if I wanted to speak with a financial advisor. I said maybe later that right now I just wanted to go home. But, of course, I was not going home. Not really. I had already arranged for a moving truck. A small one, just big enough for my boxes. It was waiting around the corner from my house, driver, patient, and discreet. Nancy had recommended him, said he did a lot of work for people in complicated situations. I parked down the street and walked to the house through the back. Derek was still at the kitchen table, headphones on now, focused on whatever was on his screen. He did not hear me come in. He did not see me gather my boxes from the closet in my room and carry them out the back door one by one to the waiting truck. It took about an hour to load everything. The driver helped me quiet and efficient, asking no questions. When the truck was full, I went back inside one more time. I walked through the house slowly. The living room where we had celebrated Christmases and birthdays, the kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals, the backyard where Eugene had pushed Derek on the swing, both of them laughing in the summer sun. I touched the doorframe in the hallway, the one where we had measured Derek's height every year from age 5 to 18. Little pencil marks with dates beside them. Evidence of a childhood, of a family of love. I did not cry. I thought I would, but I did not. Maybe I had cried enough in the past few months. Maybe I had no tears left, or maybe I had finally accepted that a house is just a building and home is something you carry inside yourself. I went to the kitchen. Derek was still there, still absorbed in his laptop. I set an envelope on the counter beside him. "What's this?" he asked, finally looking up. "Read it after I leave," I said. He frowned. "Leave? Where are you going?" "Goodbye, Derek," I said, and I walked out the front door. The driver was waiting. I climbed into the passenger seat of the moving truck and we pulled away. I watched my house get smaller in the side mirror until we turned the corner and it disappeared. Derek called me about 20 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again, and again, and again. I turned off my phone. Meanwhile, in that house, Derek was reading my letter. I know because he told me later. He described opening the envelope with shaking hands, confused, annoyed, expecting maybe a grocery list or a complaint. Instead, he found a single sheet of paper handwritten in my careful script. "Derek," the letter said, "I sold the house. The sale is final. New owners move in Monday. This envelope contains a check for $5,000, enough for you to find a new place and pay first month's rent. Consider it my final gift to you. I gave you everything I had for 38 years. Now I am giving myself the rest of my life. Do not try to contact me. When I am ready to talk, I will reach out. Until then, I wish you well, Mom." Attached to the letter was a copy of the closing document showing the sale was complete and irreversible. And the check, $5,000 out of $410,000, about 1% of what the house was worth. Derek told me later that he sat at the kitchen table for a long time just staring at the paper. Then, Jasmine came home with the kids, and he had to tell her. He said her scream was so loud the neighbors probably heard it. "She can't do this," Jasmine kept saying. "This is our home. She can't just sell it." But I had, and there was nothing they could do about it. They called lawyers, of course. Jasmine called 3 different ones before she finally accepted the truth. The house was in my name. I had full legal right to sell. There was no fraud, no coercion, no grounds for a lawsuit. I had simply sold my own property. They called Walter. He hung up on them. They called Dorothy. She told them exactly what she thought of them and then hung up. They tried calling me dozens of times, but my phone was off and would stay off until I was ready. While they scrambled to find a new place to live, while they crammed their belongings into boxes and argued about whose fault this was, I was on a plane to Arizona. Walter picked me up at the airport in Phoenix. He looked older than I remembered, gray hair, thinner shoulders, more stooped. But his hug was strong and his smile was warm, and when I started crying in the middle of the terminal, he just held me and let me cry. "Welcome home, Patsy," he said. "For as long as you want it." I stayed. That was 8 months ago. I am sitting on Walter's back patio as I tell you this story, watching the Arizona sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The air is warm and dry, nothing like the humid Chicago summers I knew for most of my life. It took some getting used to this desert climate, but now I love it. I love the sunshine, the mountains in the distance, the way the stars look at night when there is no city light to dim them. I used the money from the house wisely, invested most of it with the help of a financial advisor, safe and conservative, generating enough income that I will never have to worry about money again. I bought a little car, nothing fancy, a practical sedan that gets good mileage. My first car of my own since I sold that Honda all those years ago. I rent a small apartment now, a few miles from Walter's house. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a balcony overlooking a courtyard with a fountain. It is not much, but it is mine. I decorated it the way I want, cook whatever I want, eat whenever I want. Nobody makes me a schedule. Nobody hands me a grocery list. Nobody makes me feel like I do not belong. I joined a painting class at the community center. It meets every Tuesday morning, a group of retirees learning to work with acrylics. I'm not very good, but that is not the point. The point is doing something for myself, something that brings me joy. My first painting hangs in my living room, a sunset over the desert, amateur and clumsy, but full of color. I look at it every day and remember that I made something, that I still have things to create, experiences to have, life to live. I volunteer at the local library twice a week helping children learn to read. It reminds me of my teaching days, the satisfaction of watching a struggling student finally understand. A little girl named Maria told me last week that I was her favorite helper. I nearly cried right there in the children's section. I made friends here. A group of women around my age, some widowed like me, some divorced, all of them rebuilding their lives in one way or another. We have lunch together every Thursday, try new restaurants, share stories. One of them, Margaret, went through something similar with her daughter. Different details, but the same betrayal. She understands in a way few others can. And then there is Derek. 5 months after I left, he called. I was ready to answer by then, ready to hear what he had to say. His voice was different, smaller. The confidence, the entitlement, it was gone, replaced by something else. Exhaustion, maybe, or shame. "Mom," he said, "I'm so sorry." I let him talk. He told me that Jasmine had left him. The stress of losing the free housing, the free childcare, the free maid service, it had broken something between them. They fought constantly. She blamed him for everything. He blamed her. 3 months after I left, she moved out and filed for divorce. He told me he had lost 15 pounds because he did not know how to cook. He told me he had been wearing wrinkled shirts to work because he did not know how to use the iron. He told me he had realized too late how much I had done for him his entire life. "I took you for granted," he said. "I treated you terribly. Dad would be so ashamed of me." I took a deep breath, held it, let it out slowly. "Yes," I said, "he would be." Derek cried. I listened. When he was done, I told him the truth. I told him I forgave him. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I was not going to poison myself for him. But I also told him that forgiveness did not mean forgetting. It did not mean pretending the past did not happen. It did not mean things would go back to the way they were. I love you, Derek, I said. You are my son and I will always love you, but I don't trust you anymore. That trust has to be rebuilt if it can be rebuilt at all, and that will take time. We have talked a few times since then. Awkward conversations, careful and polite, like strangers learning to know each other. Maybe someday we will be close again. Maybe we will not. I have accepted that I cannot control the outcome, only my own choices. Lucas and Emma came to visit this summer. Derek drove them out, stayed at a hotel, let me have the kids for a week. We went swimming, made cookies, watched movies on my little couch. One night, Emma crawled into my lap and said, "Grandma, you seem happier here." I kissed the top of her head. I am, sweetheart. I really am. When Derek picked them up, we stood in my apartment parking lot making small talk about the weather, about school, about nothing important. Before he left, he looked at me with something in his eyes I had not seen in years. Something like respect. "You were right to leave," he said quietly. "I didn't see it then, but I see it now. You deserve better than what we gave you." It was not an apology, not exactly, but it was something. A start, maybe, a crack in the wall. I nodded. "Take care of yourself, Derek. Take care of those kids." And he drove away. I spent 32 years teaching children that they matter. I forgot to teach myself the same lesson. It took 63 years, but I finally learned. I finally understood that loving someone does not mean erasing yourself. That sacrifice is noble, but self-destruction is not. That there is a difference between giving your heart and giving your dignity. My house is gone. The tulips I planted the swing set, Eugene built the door frame with the pencil marks. All of it belongs to Sarah and Paul now. I hope they fill it with love, the way we did once. I hope it gives them the happiness it gave us. I am not the same woman who stood in that kitchen washing dishes at 10 o'clock at night eating crackers because there was nothing left. I am not the woman who celebrated her birthday alone with a grocery store cupcake. I am not the woman who was invisible in her own home. I am Patsy. I am 63 years old. I am strong and I am free, and I have finally learned that my life belongs to me. If you are watching this and feeling invisible in your own home, if someone is treating you like you do not matter, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. You matter. Your life has value not because of what you do for others, but because of who you are. And it is never too late to reclaim your life. Never too late to turn the page and start a new chapter. I did it at 63. You can do it too. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect yourself? Share your story in the comments below. Let us build a community here, a place where we lift each other up and remind each other that we are worthy of love and respect. If this story touched you, please give it a like. It helps more than you know. And if you are not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next story. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. You never know who is struggling in silence, waiting for a sign that they are not alone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I wish you peace. I wish you strength. And most of all, I wish you the courage to love yourself as much as you love others. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You matter. You really, really do.